Coming up, when is a councillor vehicle allowance not a vehicle allowance? Can the Bremer River ever be a pristine waterway? Should council divisional officers make a comeback? And does anyone really care if the Blackall Monument is moved back to its original site? These topics and more in Over the Back Fence with Ashleigh Mack and Walter Williams. It's Thursday, March 25, 2021, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Time again to be joined by my Ipswich panel, Walter Williams. He's called Ipswich home for 30 years, and you've heard his voice as a leading voiceover talent in Australia. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you very much, Alan. Pleasure to be here.
And Ashleigh Mack, who was born in Ipswich, and he still blames growing up under power lines at Evervale for being a media tart. He's also a small business owner. Come in, Ash.
G'day, mate. Good to see you. Good to see you, Walt.
Thanks, mate. You too, Ash.
Yeah, let's get straight to the issues at hand. And this one was first broken by journalist Brian Benyon in the Fassifern Guardian and Tribune. This is about Councillor Andrew Fechner's car allowance. And I've just heard recently that the Crime and Corruption Commission will not investigate any claims of fraud against Councillor Fechner. Is this a storm in a teacup, Walter?
I don't know about a storm in a teacup. From what I can gather, this sort of happened automatic process, right, with Andrew Fechner accepting the $19,500 vehicle allowance, even though he doesn't own a car, which is bizarre. But I was just thinking, was it arrogant or plain stupid? But it turns out it's an automatic thing. So, and no one needed to sign off on this allowance, did they? And this is the thing, we have seen in past councils that ended up getting wiped out completely because of lesser items. I mean, the thing that happened with Andrew Antonelli was only a $10,000 amount compared to this, which is closer to $20,000. So as I say, is it arrogant or is it just plain stupid? And no one had to sign off on this. We didn't need the CEO or the mayor knowing about it. It just happened. But I just think they should be keeping a really closer eye on the finer detail in council, because we need, and council needs, to put out a much cleaner version of itself than it did a few years ago.
Ashleigh, what do you think?
To me, I just think somebody was trying to grandstand. I once said to a guy who was going to run for council, don't do it this time, because all you're going to do is paint crosshairs on your forehead, because for some reason you'll be a target for everything. And I think this is just somebody having a go at Fechner. What I find is it says in the rules it's for the procurement of a vehicle. Mm. Now, wouldn't procuring a vehicle be also hiring an Uber or hiring a taxi or a bus?
You would think so, but apparently the policy is worded that it refers to a vehicle allowance for the cost of maintaining and running a vehicle.
Well, I'd beg to differ, because when I read it, it says for the procurement of a vehicle to cover, and I've actually looked it up before, certain items. But look, the guy's got to get around. If he doesn't have a driver's license, what is he going to do? He's going to call a taxi, and a taxi is a lot more expensive than driving your own car.
Yes, yes. So basically,
either way, isn't there?
Yeah, the council needs to tidy up the policy in double quick time so it allows for councillors who don't have driver's licenses.
Yeah.
Discriminates against people who don't want to drive.
And luckily it's been sorted, so we won't have another trigger of a dismissal.
Well, we can be thankful for that, I think, at this time in Ipswich's history. Look, another item that was reported in the Fassifern Guardian and Tribune, and possibly other media, I'm not sure, is that former Mayor John Nugent and Councillor Paul Tully are calling for a return of single councillor divisions, and they're saying, or he's saying, Councillor Tully is saying, that he is meeting residents at McDonald's because he's got nowhere else. Well, is that true?
Crap.
Is that true? Or is Councillor Tully choosing to deliberately meet residents at McDonald's? Ash?
Well, there's plenty of council chambers and places you can meet. You don't have to go to McDonald's, mind you. It's not a bad spot if you don't mind the chips. I don't understand why they want to go backwards to do it the way we did it before. Why can't we just keep it the way it is?
Each divisional council office, we've been through all that, how much it cost. It was an extraordinary amount of money. You couldn't carry out any council transactions. You couldn't pay your rates. You couldn't pay your dog rego. I think the current system of East, Middle and West is working really well. Walter?
Meeting at Macca's, I'm loving it. Okay, with all due respect, why are we even listening to a former mayor from 2 decades ago? John Nugent. Look, lovely bloke, but really out of the public eye. And personally, I'm not a fan of the 2 council electorates, as I've already stated on this podcast earlier.
Yes, you have.
Or co-captains of sports teams. We just don't win premierships that way. I just want to know why we've got these bigger areas. What's the point of it? Why don't we go to a system where we still have a certain amount of councillors, but only 1 per electorate?
Wouldn't 2 give you the opportunity for 1 to have a breather every once in a while, because it's a 24/7 job? And if you're in there for how many years is the council? 4 years, and you don't get a time off. It's good to have, I think, 2 people running it, because both of them stay across the whole thing. And if one's away, one gets sick, you've still got someone there.
Yeah, but we only have 1 mayor, we only have 1 prime minister, 1 premier. Why do we have to have 2 people looking after 1 electorate? I know what you're saying, that it is a 24/7 gig, and that's the thing that they sign on for as well.
Yeah, but perhaps there could be more discussion on it, and we've got 8 councillors and a mayor, making up 9 altogether. So perhaps maybe down the track it's 8 divisions, not 10.
Do you think there's deeper personal conflicts at hand in Paul Tully's division than we know of? Are they not getting along with their co-council?
Well, I don't think councillors have to get along as such. They don't have to be best buddies, right? They just have to make it does help, but they have to make the best decisions in the interest of the whole city, not just their division.
I've got a feeling Paul wants to get a council and get into media. He's starting to run his own TV show on Facebook.
I think you're right.
Yes, Paul Tully Media. All right, let's move on to something else. Mm-hmm. And the question going around is not just in Ipswich, but is Ipswich undergoing a boom period for real estate prices and sales? I spoke to June Frank in the last couple of weeks. She was most enthusiastic, as you would expect June to be, about the current market conditions. Now, Ash, I'm going to throw this one to you first, because you've dabbled in selling real estate. How is Ipswich going at the moment?
You still got family in real estate, and you hear stories. If you have a rental property, it's going to be full. There are people turning up, like 50 applicants turning up to open homes at rental properties. I heard a story where someone went to an open home of rental property in Avon Street, Leichhardt, and waived an extra $50 at the agent and said, if I'll pay an extra $50 a week just to get this, you can't get rental accommodation in this town. And that means that the market is good for investors, and it also means at the moment, with the money being cheap, it's good for first home buyers. I think what's time on market at the moment? Something like a week and a half.
You are kidding me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. My daughter just sold a property and she had it first open home gone.
Wow.
Right? And it's ridiculous. It's back to the 2003. But how long will it last?
Same thing, actually, Ashleigh, not in Ipswich, but in Brisbane. My daughter put a property on the market on the Friday, sold on the Monday.
Yeah, it's amazing.
On open house.
Yeah.
So what we're hearing in the media, then, you're telling me is true?
Oh, yeah. The figures for February are going to be out. You watch the jump in prices. You cannot get stock. Agents are saying, hey, they can't get listings because people aren't selling because of COVID. Right. And what gets on the market goes quickly because there's more buyers than there are sellers. And
there was that story on the news the other night, a new farm property, absolute falling down around your dump, sold for over $2 million to a young developer who's going to split it up, the property, and sell it and make an absolute fortune out of that.
As long as they don't turn them into postage stamp blocks of land, I hate.
Oh, they're going to be tiny. Yeah, they will. New farm properties aren't big anyway.
Well, it's extraordinary times for the city. So basically that those incredible jumps we witnessed in the early 2000s, where I think in one 12-month period, properties went up $100,000 and possibly more over a 2-year period. Do you think we'll get to that extent again?
I would go out on a limb and say I think you're at top of the market now. Anybody who's buying in is not going to make a lot of money for a while.
No,
it's doing that that step thing it always does. All of a sudden, bang up, and then it'll stay flat for a while, and then bang up and flat for a while. So I think we're at top of the market.
I know personally, my little 28 perch in the CBD, since I bought it, it's gone up about 7 times in value over 30 years. So that's not bad.
Wow.
Not a bad return on investment.
But of course you've still got to have somewhere to live. So
that's the thing.
If you sell now, you've got to buy something else at the top of the market.
It never ends.
No. All right. Well, we'll all stay put then where we are. The Bremer River. It's in the news this week for minor to moderate flooding. But a couple of weeks ago, a retired expert had made comments in various media about the sad state of the Bremer River. Now, we all know it's not the cleanest river, but what do we do about it? Everyone seems to have an opinion. I'll just kick it off by saying there was a lot of work done when council owned water and sewerage, and the Bundamba sewage treatment plant was upgraded substantially to reduce the nutrients, I think it's referred to, going into the river. So the water, basically, we were told the water that was coming out of the sewage treatment plant going into the river was cleaner than the river itself. So what do we do to clean it up? We've got a couple of 100 years of white settlement where the land has been denuded. So every time we have a flood, we get all this runoff. And then when there's a drought, the bottom section of the river is tidal and it doesn't get a chance to flush out. Is it fixable? What do you think, Walt? You live overlooking the river.
Oh, yeah. And like you say, in recent times, there's been more cases of flooding, but to the quality of the river itself, there's a certain stench about it when it does flood too. The Bremer River got an F on its report card. It had a flunk. I mean, the fish, there are signs up everywhere, notices along the river heart that if you fish here and you catch fish, whatever you do, don't eat them. It's very much like a case of Springfield and The Simpsons. You might end up with something with 3 heads, and we don't even have a nuclear power plant to bless ourselves with. But this river in my book, and I've said this for years, needs a massive overhaul, starting with some sort of form of dredging. And once we get it to a state where this is a healthier river, let's make better use of it with riverside concerts and events and things like that.
How do we stop stuff going into the river?
That's the big issue. That's the big issue. You've got the sediment runoff from the farmlands upstream, and you've got stormwater going into it.
Is stormwater dirty?
It's grey, so it's going to be... Yeah.
And it'll contain rubbish.
And nutrients you refer to. Not all good.
No.
So, it's like I say, massive job, but there's better minds than ours that could actually fix this, I reckon. It will take decades.
Another suggestion that was made in recent years that somehow we build a small dam across the city reaches of the Bremer River, and so it'll build up and be like a small lake. But the problem is keeping it flushed. It's tidal there. And it would eventually just dry up because there'd be no inflows from upstream.
That's true. Yeah.
We'll refer it to the other Bremer River experts around, and perhaps Dr. Bill, has a point. And if he keeps lobbying, who knows what they could come up with.
I remember when I was a kid, my dad took me down to show me the ferry, the Moggle ferry, and he said when he was a kid, they used to set crab pots down there and catch crabs and take them home and eat them. You couldn't do that now, could you?
No.
Okay,
you can't even get the ferry up the river anymore. It used to stop near my place, but it hasn't been here for over a decade.
Yeah. Well, that's just transport demands changing, I think there. Well, plus the river
I think that's depth of the river changing.
Depth of the river too, yes. I was about to add that. Another one in the news is the good old Blackall Monument, which is up there on the hill behind the hospital. Mm-hmm. There are calls to move it back to Doyle Place, its original home. And again, I might kick this one off by saying I can recall council in the last 10 or 15 years examining that proposal, and I think it came back to cost. Absolutely prohibitive. How much is too much to move the Blackall Monument back to Doyle Place? What do you think, Ash?
Well, what's wrong with where it is now?
Apparently it's out of the way and no one knows it's there.
Who's upset about it? Like a monument's a monument. I don't see a problem. I don't like what they've done in the city with the malls and things. I reckon that should be just traffic. It should be like when I was a kid. That was a bus stop for the Amberley Rosewood bus service when I was a kid. I'd much rather go back to that.
The Nicholas Street Mall is coming together nicely. I was down there on the weekend at the food trucks expo, and it was brilliant. And hopefully they do more of that. They've got the plan. But the people behind this one, Ash, and for once you and I agree on something, because I'm going, why move it? Deputy Mayor Marnie Doyle, I don't know if she's any relation to the original Darcy Doyle. I love retaining monuments as much as the next bloke, and way more than the Dean brothers, in fact. But at what cost to Ipswich?
Do we have a bizarre focus on history here? Do we try and preserve not just the nice things, but a lot of the crap as well?
Well, I think it depends on your point of view. You're trying to refer to the monument as crap?
No, I'm not saying the monument is, but I'm saying because Ipswich has such a focus on old homes, and we tend to our detriment, I think, sometimes keep things. Do you remember that thing was beside McDonald's? It was just a standard old building that was beside McDonald's, and a lot of people put up a hoo-ha about it.
Oh, the old fire station.
Yeah,
yes.
The old fire.
Yes.
I thought it was a mess. They could do a lot better things. Even the car park was better than it, right? Sometimes we try to keep the wrong things in this town under the name of heritage, and I don't see any reason why we need to move that monument. It can stay where it is.
And I think council budget could be better spent on other things. There's a lot of streets with no footpaths, just a basic.
Yes.
And you see mums struggling with prams, getting the kids off to school for the day, and they're trotting through something that should have a concrete footpath on it. But no, we're talking about moving a drinking fountain. I love them as well, but I think you find Nicholas Street Mall's already got a few, and even some dog-friendly drink fountains they put in there now. So...
Well, the panel is obviously very clear. Leave the monument where it is.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk sport. We got to talk sport. The Jets had their season launch for 2021. How are they going to go this year, Walter?
I hope they go well, mate.
We all do.
In the interest of full disclosure, I did used to do a thing with the QRL, and Ipswich Jets are a client of mine as well. So in the VO business. But I would just love to see the Jets get up over the Dolphins.
The perennial rivals.
Yeah, it's a good old rivalry, and I love a good footy rivalry. You can't beat it. The greatest game of all, and it's good to see it back, and I can hear it from my place when they crank it up on a Saturday afternoon or whatever. But let's see the Jets bring it home in 2021.
The old saying goes, go Ipswich, go Jets. Ashleigh?
Yes.
I was just going to say, just don't get too excited about it, otherwise somebody will want to build a stadium.
Well, they're already talking about that, aren't they? I get your irony in that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we do need a Western Corridor NRL team.
You think so?
Yeah. I think it can work, because it would also include the catchment of Toowoomba. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I suppose so. I remember being at the working at the radio station that was there for the Broncos, and I couldn't work out what all the fuss was. Having this team, this football team, this is a football team. Turned out I didn't pick that one very well, did I?
And they've had better years. I don't think they've won a game for about 12 or 13 games now.
Is that right?
Yeah, but the Broncos will come back. Eventually.
Like all good sporting teams, they eventually come good. Walter Williams and Ashleigh Mack, another brilliant Over the Back Fence. Thank you very much, and we'll do it all again next month.
Look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks, lads.
Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button at the bottom of the page. You can follow this podcast on your favourite app, including iHeartRadio, or play Ipswich Today from your smart speaker. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thanks for listening.